I'm Teresa Coles. I'm currently working with the Ministry of Forestry in their tree improvement branch, specifically at Kalamalka Seed Orchard in Vernon, BC. I am a co-op student with Quantum Polytechnic University in my first work term in the summer. This is a video overview of what the Ministry of Forestry does, specifically for seed production. What my responsibilities were during this work term, how I got the interview process, and how I improved over the summer, and then an overview of how orchards work. Okay, so Kalamalka Seed Orchard is one of 40 seed orchards across BC that produces seeds for the Ministry of Forestry. My main roles at the Kalamalka Seed Orchard was as an auxiliary worker, and what that means is that I did a lot of different tasks. I did irrigation, which would mainly be making sure that the lines are clear, that they're repaired if there's a break, that the emitters, which let out water, are correctly lined up with the younger trees, but also the older trees, and that they're dripping correctly. There's also a lot of orchard maintenance, especially in the early spring, where you're cataloging all the trees to make sure that they are in the correct place and that we have the genetic codes and that they're all tagged, because it's really crucial that the genetic information for the seed orchard is correct. Because what happens is that in the summertime, when the spruce, larch, and pine are producing their cones, we have a large crew of people picking cones, and we need to make sure that the seeds that they're picking are the correct seeds and that they are all genetically correct, because the seed center down in Surrey processes our seeds from all across BC, and if there's a certain genetic clone that wasn't picked this year because maybe it got a lot of buds or opened too early or it didn't produce much cones, then the seed center needs to know that that genetic clone was not part of the orchard this year. So in the early spring, it's a lot of maintenance, making sure that the orchard is ready, basically making sure the orchard's ready for the big cone pick in the summer. But we also do a lot of pest management, especially in the early spring, because we want to catch any pests that will damage our cones for the summer. Specifically, so there's Directia, which is a moth that eats our cones and will basically go in from the bottom and work your way all the way up and eat away all the seeds. There's adelgids, which cause damage to the outer cones. There's spider mites, which is actually part of my program's project for the summer. I monitored the spider mite population, and I monitored a predatory beetle that was released in early spring, and we wanted to see if the relationship between the two was sufficient enough that we could justify releasing these beetles around our orchard to help mitigate the spider mite population, mainly because spider mite causes a large amount of damage to younger trees, causing the vitality of the younger trees to wane and may impede growth during the growing season. Now, my other responsibility was during the summer I was a crew lead for a cone picking crew, and that means I organized them, made sure that they were following COVID safety guidelines. I monitored their production levels to ensure that we were on task. I organized the orchard to make sure that we were picking the correct cones, and there was a lot of organization and leadership skills that I improved on during the summer co-op course. It was amazing. And the main things that I learned from this co-op was that as an auxiliary worker for the government, you do a lot of different things. You are doing database entry, you're doing pest management surveys, you are interacting with big crews of people to make sure that they're all being safe and you're guiding them. And it was an amazing experience. Definitely improved my my observation skills, my leadership, and I would recommend this to anyone that has a horticultural background or has an environmental background and wants to learn more about the Ministry of Forestry and how that works. Okay, so I'm going to send you guys off to a video I took in the seed orchard so you can take a look around. And we're going to talk about the difference between larch and spruce, what I do with pest surveys, and the process of the cones going from the seed orchard to the seed center and what that looks like. Okay?
Alright, so this is the larch cone, right? And you can kind of see the difference between a larch and a spruce cone because of the size, but also just the way the bracts are. And if you look at the tree, you compare it, that the tree has really thin branches, and they're notorious for breaking off. So you'll be picking a tree and the branch will just break and you're like, ah, when you compare it to a spruce tree.
Oh, right. So these are the spruce over here.
Yeah, so like those are the spruce trees, and you can if you can see the cones from here, the cones are very smooth and kind of long.
Yeah.
And so they're a lot easier to pick, mainly because the branches are sturdier. They're usually all in one section of the tree, and you can pick them that way. Whereas with the larch, if you look through this tree, the cones are from the top all the way to the bottom, so you have to go through the whole tree.
Right.
To pick.
It doesn't look like these larch get as tall as the spruce, though.
This is a younger orchard, so they're
Okay.
not. They were planted at different times, so they are younger. Yeah, on Thursday.
Okay. So this is an insect trap?
Okay. Alright, so this is Delta Trap. And what we do in the orchards is there's a little pheromone lure in the trap that the insects like Directoria, pitch moth, European shoot moth, Barbara, they are attracted by the scent of the pheromone because the males think it's a mating female. So we don't get the females, unfortunately, but we do get the males before they can mate with the female. And what happens is, let me just put that down. We put it in the tree near cones so that we can stop them from getting into the cones. And this little trap here is sticky, and we don't just get the insects we want, we also get other insects that are similarly attracted. But what we do is we check to see how many are in here. Like, for example, this is a Directoria trap, so we check to see what everything that's in here. If we have like 3, 4, 5 Directoria, we're like, okay, that's not a huge amount, but it is concerning. And so over several weeks, we track to see how many Directoria come in, and if we get a consistent amount, we may choose to spray before we pick the cones. Because what happens is that Directoria is an insect that lays their eggs in cones. The larvae open up and they start eating from, let's see if I can show you a cone.
So this is a Directoria larvae. It's eating through the cone and eating the seeds. If this isn't stopped early on, it causes huge problems later. So that was just a quick overview of the basics of the Kalamalka seed orchard and what some of my responsibilities were at the orchard. And at the end of the summer, I was so busy I wasn't able to take any videos of us actually cone picking. But the main thing is that you have 16-foot ladder, 10 to 16-foot ladders, and usually at the start I had a crew of about 9, and then at the end of the summer I had a crew of 17 people. And we were working in groups, people on the ground picking and people on ladders. We also had people going through with machines and topping the trees. That's where they cut the tops of the trees off so that ground pickers can pick the cones from the ground because we don't have enough people on ladders. And I feel that I It was an amazing experience, and as a co-op student, I feel like I was a vital role in the cone picking season, and therefore, I felt like I was improving my organization skills. One of my goals for the summer was to improve my leadership, and kind of organizing and leading a group of 17 people really put me to the test, and I feel that I'm a lot more confident with leading a wide range of people, not just high school students, but people from all different backgrounds and all different experiences. And so I'm very happy with my co-op. I would recommend this to anyone that has a science or horticultural background. If you want to have an amazing co-op up in Vernon, I would do it. It's a great opportunity. But for the interview process, some of the main things I would say is when they post government jobs, especially the BC Public Service, they will list competencies that they want the applicant to have. I would highly recommend going onto the BC government website. They have a huge list of competencies, and read through those because they give you a lot of detail on what exactly they want those people to have, and have stories or have events mapped out that you can talk about where you showed those competencies and that where you showed that you improved. So, for example, talk about you had a problem, you used this skill, like I used my communication skills to solve this problem, and then explain how you would do this in the scenario they provide. They'll usually give you about 2 to 3 scenarios the day before the interview, asking you questions on what you would do. So I would link the competencies to the scenarios, explain what you would do. They'll usually ask you almost in the beginning of the interview, like, oh, we gave you these questions, what would you do in this instance, and just talk through it. Though they might ask you to specify, that's okay, they just want to get the whole image. So they'll give you interview questions. Make sure that you research the competencies and make sure you actually research the position you're applying for. So for example, with the seed orchard, and the genetic research station is right beside the seed orchard. So there was a lot of articles about research they did and how the seed orchard was involved. So I asked about that. Make sure you have I would suggest 4 questions about the seed orchard. Look into the articles you did, explain what you did to basically prepare. Be like, hey, I looked this up and this sounds really interesting. Be really excited to learn more about this. Is there any chance I can do this during the summer? For example, I saw an article about the climate change genetic research projects, and I was like, hey, this looks really amazing. Is there any way I can work on this as well? And they're part of seed production, so at the start they're like, oh no, like we don't actually work with the genetic part of, there's no current projects with climate change currently, but just this week I just came back from a project with genetics, with climate change project where I went into basically a tree stand, and we mapped out and collected data from a genetic trial based on geographic location and the climate, and it was amazing. I loved it, and that's the thing, you need to find things that you're really interested in, show enthusiasm, because it's important that they see that you're interested in what they do. In conclusion, I had an amazing summer co-op with being able to hide little chips in the trees for my pickers, going on a genetics trip and using hypsometers and collecting data on the climate change trials, and having an amazing work term where I learned so many different things and got to have amazing supervisors and managers that taught me so much.